Joining me now are Bruno Monteyne, he's retail analyst at Bernstein Research, and Adam Leyland, he's editor of The Grocer. Gentlemen, good evening to you both. Bruno, big question, is this going to get past the CMA?
Most likely, yes. A company like Sainsbury's and Walmart and Asda wouldn't go into this lightly. They've clearly read the last few filings, whether it's a Tesco Booker deal for the Coral thing, and they clearly highlighted specific elements of what has changed versus 10 years ago. And there's probably two particular elements that are really worth thinking about. 10 years ago, you were either a competitor or not, and so they would have considered only big stores a competitor of another supermarket. In previous filings, they made it clear that discounters are a competitor, small stores are a competitor, even online is a competitor. And so the set of people that compete with an Asda or a Sainsbury's store is much more than it was 10 years ago, which is probably reality. They made it clear on paper. The CMA doesn't have a lot of flexibility. If the rules are there, if the precedents are set there, they've done to the numbers, this will be approved.
And of course, the CMA, having approved the Tesco takeover of Booker, has almost created the climate for this deal.
I don't agree with that. I mean, Tesco Booker was a radically different deal. It was a retailer with a wholesaler. The CMA follows the rules. They don't like have whims that they then sort of say, oh, we have to keep to this whim. There's very clear economic thinking behind that. Occasionally the thinking develops. They have to stick to the rules that they write themselves or that the government sets for them. Tesco Booker was well thought through. It had to be approved, and I think the same will be for this. This isn't about the whims changing and they have to do this because of the other deal.
Right, I mean, Adam, it's very clear from what Bruno's saying there, the CMA does accept, though, that the climate has changed. This isn't like Safeway being bought by Morrison's 15 years ago.
No, it's a completely different market. The discounters, despite being considerably smaller in share terms, are really hurting Asda and Sainsbury's. Asda, you think about it, they have they've cut thousands of jobs at head office level. They've tried their best to compete on price, and they have fundamentally failed. There's still a 15%-ish sort of margin. And if you think of all that work they're doing, it's no wonder they're saying, you know, we've actually, and it's ironic, isn't it, that these disruptors, so this is a consolidation play in which two of the biggest supermarkets in the land are joining forces to compete with a disruptor. Now, these aren't small disruptors, they are very big. Aldi and Lidl are backed by enormous German-based global businesses, similarly with Amazon, but in terms of share, their share is smaller. So really there's a recognition here that it isn't a share necessarily that delivers the effective prices they need to compete against these more nimble, disruptive new models.
Carnage for the suppliers. I mean, they're talking about £350 million worth of savings in the first year alone. What on earth?
Actually, a lot more than that, because that is a net synergy. So what they're saying is that they can pass on 10% price cuts for core everyday lines and then deliver to shareholders £350 million in synergies. So really, yes, it is carnage. I don't know what your question is.
Well, no, does this trigger, therefore, more consolidation among suppliers? You know, the likes of Procter & Gamble and Unilever and Kraft Heinz.
I think the message from Mike Coop today was, look, these large multinationals make huge margins compared with the supermarkets, and they're rich enough to afford the sort of price reductions that they're looking for. They've never been a best of friends with the big branded suppliers. They've always been quite jealous of the likes of Tesco and Asda in terms of their relationship with the brands. And they've done this sort of black box style interrogation of prices, and they're convinced that there's huge savings, whichever side it comes from. But yes, there will be this interrogation, therefore, and this harmonisation and equalisation of pricing that will terrify large suppliers. It will also terrify small suppliers, but it would be a huge own goal if Sainsbury's Asda then hit them as well. The likelihood is that they will subsidise the smaller suppliers, not expect those sort of harmonisation of terms, and that they will actually, you know, use the big beer brands and the household brands and so forth to get
pay more for the organic stuff.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Bruno, what about the number of stores that the CMA are likely to ask them to close? I mean, Mike Coop, very coy on this. He must have a number in mind. What do you think it is?
It's anybody's guess, but I mean, it's not going to be more than 10%, because if not, the economics would probably get quite difficult for the deal. Much less than 5. I mean, I think any number between 3 and 8 sounds about right to me. That's still a pretty broad band, but these would be much smaller than the 20% we would have expected if this deal had been done 10 years ago.
All right, Bruno Monteyne, Adam Leyland, thanks both. Good to see you.